Hello and welcome back to NewsX. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching Focal Length, your go-to show to have a closer look at the critical issues shaping our world today. Central Asia is at a crossroads in terms of geopolitical influence. Countries like Kazakhstan are playing a crucial role in shaping the region's future. Today we'll explore several key issues at hand for Central Asia. This will include Kazakhstan's role within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, its balancing act between Russia, China and India, and the region's challenges in reducing reliance on resource extraction while building sustainable industries. We'll also examine how regional instability, particularly in Afghanistan, is affecting Central Asia's security and migration concerns. We'll also talk about how China's Belt and Road Initiative is influencing local governance and autonomy. We are joined by Mr. Eldaniz Gusseinov. Eldaniz is a Central Asian and International Studies expert from Kazakhstan, with a focus on the European Union's foreign policy towards Central Asia and the region's complex geopolitical landscape. Today, we'll get an insight into how the global community views Central Asia and how the region is navigating its place in the world. Mr. Gusseinov, let's start our conversation with Kazakhstan's role in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. How would you describe the significance of Kazakhstan's position within this framework?
Kazakhstan plays a huge role as SEO, first thanks to its geographical location, and second thanks to its strategic role in different international organizations. So Kazakhstan promotes itself as a middle power, and that means that it doesn't want to take a leading role, but it wants just to connect different major players within the SEO. We know we have Russia, we have China, we have India, we have now also Iran, and all of these countries, they do have their own ambitions, from my point of view, to implement their own politics within the framework of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So from my point of view, I think Kazakhstan just wants to enhance this interconnectivity between all these major players. Kazakhstan has different initiatives like enhancing transport connectivity, emphasize also security issues within the SCO. And from my point of view, last time, the role of SCO in global affairs is also increasing. And I think it's also worth adding that Kazakhstan now actively works on particular values, and within the SCO, to have some sort of framework close to OSCE. Having some architecture, framework of security, common security architecture within the SCO, having some other values like non-interference in domestic affairs, and so on. So I think Kazakhstan just wants to create a larger space of security to promote further interconnectivity between major Eurasian powers.
Moving beyond the SCO, Kazakhstan finds itself balancing relationships with some of the world's biggest powers, including Russia, China and India. Do you think Kazakhstan is navigating this delicate web of ties?
Thanks first to transport connectivity. Without transport, you can't actually speak about any connectivity or even about any bilateral relations between countries. So I think transport, infrastructure is must to speak about any sort of relations between countries. So Russia, for example, wants to cooperate more with India, and it also requires hard infrastructure. You have north-south, you have different directions of this corridor. You can go through Azerbaijan, you can go through Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, or through Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan, and so on. So in this case, I think Kazakhstan plays a role as a connector between Russia and India, and Kazakhstan really favors its role as a connector. Second part of the question, we have also China and the middle corridor, and Kazakhstan is a middle in the middle, it connects Europe and China within the middle corridor, and I think because of sanction regime, it can definitely enhance trade between European Union and China, through land connectivity, and it means through the territory of Kazakhstan. So for Kazakhstan, it's very important to create security framework which would actually enable to the country to promote the transit corridors through its open territory, to ensure that Kazakhstan is a safe place, is a mediator, that Kazakhstan is a stable country which you can actually rely on in the case of connectivity. Let it be Russia, India, let it be China, or European Union, and we have also some other connectivity projects, for example, within the framework of Central Asian countries to promote land connectivity. I mean, within this framework, we have Organization of Turkic States. We also try to, to motivate, to speak more about transport connectivity and lower barriers for bilateral transit, for enhancing transit of goods, which goes for the territory of the Organization of Turkic States, and the same actually to common trade. I mean, we want to create, I told you, this common space just to favor Eurasian connectivity.
Central Asia, with its wealth of natural resources like oil, gas, minerals, is facing a unique challenge in terms of sustainable development. What do you see as the main hurdles for Kazakhstan and its neighbours in reducing reliance on resource extraction? Also, how might the region's vast resources impact global markets as well as regional power dynamics in the long run?
I mean, of course, now, the primary focus of Western countries are raw metals and raw materials and other strategic minerals and materials which you can actually extract in the territory of Central Asian countries. And you have some sort of race between different major players like China, and mainly, China, European Union, and USA, but all other important actors which are involved in Central Asian affairs like Russia, Iran, India, South Korea, Japan. They also, pay attention to this topic in Central Asia. And of course, when it comes to business, you can have different measures just to influence or even to pressure local authorities to be more in favor of a particular actor. For example, they can use some information campaigns just to convince you or to persuade your population more in favor of, like, let's say, US or China for the extraction of particular minerals on the territory of Kazakhstan or of any other countries. But when we speak about race, it's more about Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. As far as I know, other players pay less attention to Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan because in this sense, they are more dependent on China. But as I know, like Tajikistan also stated that the country was more open for any mineral resources investigations on its territory. So it means that they have even more than it has already been explored or discovered in Tajikistan. But it also, it's not only about information campaigns, it's more about race, having open formats of cooperation, creating better conditions for its own entrepreneurs and business in Central Asia, allocating some funding. For Central Asian countries, especially for Kazakhstan, it's now very important to attract more foreign investments, just to improve the domestic economic situation. And that's why they are more keen to attract more investments in different spheres. And in terms of competition between China and US, on a world base for materials and for critical resources, because China now actually creates more restrictions for US to import these materials from China. Central Asian countries, against this backdrop, they become more attractive for US, for China. And that's why I think Kazakhstan really offers these powers to allocate more funding and investments, namely in this sphere, extraction of materials, of metals, like cobalt or cuprum and so on. But the thing is, you should actually keep in mind that I don't think that this strategy can be sustainable if you don't pay attention to SCG and also to, if you try to create conditions that allocated funds stay namely in the country where they were invested. We had an experience in our oil field, as Western companies were heavily investing in oil and gas extraction in Kazakhstan. And at the end, we figured out that actually the money which were invested, they somehow returned to the West because we had also corruption and other sort of things. And people who actually were on the top, they just, spent the money not in Kazakhstan, but they went to the West and was spending their money for buying some luxuries or some households and so on in Western countries. So I think our country should, be more eager to have this complete supply chains, namely on the territory of Central Asia. So, for example, if a company comes to our region and starts extracting particular some resources, should also maybe have the own production based on those resources in Central Asia, so that we could actually avoid any raw dependency or any dependency on raw economy, which is more concentrated on exporting raw resources to the West. So actually they should come here and construct some factories and use our materials for having this completed goods, namely on our territory, and then import it from our region. So I think this could be a sustainable approach towards these investments in this sphere.
Looking at security concerns, the potential instability in Afghanistan has been a growing issue for Central Asia. How is Kazakhstan, along with other Central Asian nations, addressing security and migration challenges that stem from Afghanistan?
That's a good question. I think Kazakhstan took a more, maybe I would say reliable approach towards Afghanistan. We understand that Kazakhstan is let's say, middle power in Central Asia. Yes, so at least Kazakhstan had intentions to be a leader in our region, and leadership always means particular responsibility. And that's why we actually try to take some responsibilities over to Afghanistan. So we have a lot of Afghani students in Kazakhstan. They always come here, and we are very happy to have them here, that they can come to Kazakhstan, pursue a bachelor, master, or PhD, create some new job opportunities in our country, creating business. And the same comes to Afghanistan itself. So we want to promote, we want to enhance our cooperation with Afghanistan almost in all spheres. Let it be humanitarian, scientific, education, business, mining industry, transport, and so on. That's why actually we have Kaz8. It's a sort of like Kazakh edition of USAID, UK, and all of different organizations which also try to support, yes, some countries in need. So we have Kaz8, and Kazakhstan tries to implement different projects in Afghanistan. Mainly in water sphere, but now Kazakhstan also wants EU to open its own UN center, which is responsible for Central Asia and Afghanistan, to coordinate common policy towards Afghanistan. And also, we always try to provide some humanitarian assistance for people of Afghanistan. It's also like a very, this is some sort of, approach, nuanced approach of Kazakhstan. And when it comes to instability, I think it's always there. I think after, Trump came to power, there's a particular risks of humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. It was always there. And I think it's also partly responsibility of Central Asian countries to help the people of Afghanistan. We have also some other issues, domestic issues in Afghanistan, like when it comes to human rights. I think it's also a very important topic which we should also emphasize. But first and foremost, we should help the people of Afghanistan, just to avoid any destabilization factor in our region. So it's very important. Just take a look, like Kazakhstan, it's almost, via one country, it's a neighbor of Afghanistan, and one of some, let's say, not fragile, but most protective regions of Kazakhstan, actually via one country, neighbor Afghanistan, have Mangistau region. This is a very known, extractive region. So big, huge companies extract oil, gas in Mangistau, and this particular region has the most number of protests in Central Asia, and this region actually borders to Afghanistan via Turkmenistan. So that's why I think Kazakhstan always tries to promote the stability and wants to provide support and help to the people of Afghanistan.
Turning to China's Belt and Road Initiative, it's clear that local governments in Central Asia face the challenge of balancing Chinese influence with their regional autonomy. Given the region's geopolitical significance, how do you think global powers like China, Russia, and the US view Central Asia, and what's at stake for them strategically?
I don't think that Central Asian countries pursue any regional approach towards the BRI, so towards this initiative from China, Belt and Road Initiative. I think all of them have the bilateral approach. So, for example, Kazakhstan tried to implement projects within the BRI framework by by complementing it with its own initiatives like Nurlizhol. So, as far as I know, they were projects which were not 100% funded by China. There were also some investments coming from Kazakhstan, or they could have some joint ventures and so on. So in this sense, Kazakhstan wasn't so really over-dependent on China. But I mean, now the countries of the region, they try to balance this approach by having some other external initiatives. For example, there's a Eurasian Development Bank, and before summer 2023 or 22, if I'm not mistaken, one of these years, Russia was the main shareholder in this institution. And it also means that Russia, by implementing any project on the territory of the members of the Eurasian Development Bank, it meant that Russia was the main investor for these projects. And there were also some different infrastructure projects as well. And now, actually, Russia also, at least from my point of view, wants to invest in some infrastructure projects. For example, they want to create some storages for the open goods on the territory of Kazakhstan, especially in the northern part of our country. The same comes to other Central Asian countries. You have North-South corridor. So at least it's expected that Russia would also invest in some projects within this corridor on the territory of Central Asian countries. So it actually also helps to decrease dependency on Chinese investments, which come from the BRI initiative. And you have also Global Gateway, but for me it's a bit difficult to evaluate its success because since this initiative was it was launched either 2022 or 2022 or 21 or 22, and also they have launched the projects only last year. First projects within the Global Gateway initiative. So it means that success of this initiative is still to be evaluated. But Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, namely these three countries, have particular interest in supporting or in participating in the Global Gateway. And of course, it's also, they have this thought in mind just to be less dependent on the BRI initiatives. And from my observation, it seems to me that China also started to support, to allocate less investments for infrastructure. So I think we have China Central Asia Summit this year, and I think that all the sides involved will speak less about infrastructure. And it's now for all Central Asian countries, it's very important to have more investments in the sphere because of growing land transit through Central Asia, which connects different parts of Eurasia. But I have also already underlined.
Lastly, speaking of Russia, their ongoing war in Ukraine has had a ripple effect across the globe. How has this conflict impacted Central Asia's political and economic strategies, particularly in relation to Russia?
Different. When we take into account latest events, yes, crash of the airplane of the Azov airline, it also demonstrates how the war impacts Central Asian countries, since approximately 6 citizens of Kazakhstan, which were on the airplane, died because of the crash. And you know that the airplane, it was, shooted by from anti-air defense systems of Russia, which were actually more oriented towards any threats coming from Ukraine. And in this regard, I think not only this, but also some other issues. For example, Russia is now more interested in cooperating with Central Asia. Since 2022, we have the highest number of interactions between Russian politicians and Central Asian politicians. I mean, Putin, he came several times to, I mean, he managed to visit all Central Asian countries since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. He also all of his, I mean, like prime minister, minister for foreign affairs, they could even manage to visit each country several times. And also, I mean, when it comes to economy, as far as I know, each second company with a foreign share in Kazakhstan belongs to Russian business. And it's, I mean, officially, yes. So it's just according to the citizenship of a person. But I mean, there can be some issues like Kazakh citizens open a company, but a Russian citizen invests in it. So, like you have some different schemes in this sense. But officially, I mean, almost each second foreign company on the territory of Kazakhstan, or partly with a partial foreign share on the territory of Kazakhstan, is like Russia. Or I mean, this is being indicated as Russian company in Kazakhstan. And the same comes to all Central Asian countries. I mean, Russia heavily increased its economic presence almost in all 5 stands. Russia tries to implement different projects, like, for example, TAPI, which will enable to Russia to connect South and Central Asia with each other. I mean, North and South project has the same intention to connect, I mean, Central and South Asia with each other, but through Russian efforts, and also through efforts from major South Asian powers. And also we have subsecurity issues. I mean, regardless of all Western narratives about Russia losing its influence in Central Asia, Russia also increased its security presence almost not in all 5 states, but at least in countries like Kyrgyzstan. I mean, on place, yes, and also in Tajikistan. This military base in Tajikistan, Russian military base, it was even it was broad and increased. The same comes to Russian military base in Kyrgyzstan. So yeah, I mean, a huge number of topics which we can discuss regarding the impact of the war in Ukraine on Central Asian countries. But I think also that the war in Ukraine reshaped, I mean, for example, EU Central Asian relations and also China Central Asian relations, because all these actors became more involved in our region after the outbreak of the war, because they saw some new opportunities or some new window of opportunities for increasing cooperation with Central Asian countries.
Mr. Gusseinov, thank you for your valuable insights today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And with that, it's a wrap on this episode. Stay tuned for more discussions on the critical matters shaping our global future.